All right. As we mentioned, we are with our newly appointed Arizona Real Estate Commissioner, Susan Nicholson. Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us this
Yeah,
morning.
thank you.
Let's kind of my two upfront questions. The first one is I think it would be great just to provide a little bit of background as to your real because I don't think people understand that our commissioners come from the real estate industry, and so they look at our commissioner thinking of them as they got a god complex and looking down on us and so forth. But you are a realtor at heart. You've been an active real estate agent. You're not currently. So to walk us through kind of your background and your history, and then what does the Department of Real Estate and what does the commissioner do, because I think there's a lot of confusion.
Sure. That's a great question. We've got 30 minutes, huh? No,
Well, 25 now.
25, yeah.
we will be brief then. I'm a 28-year real estate professional. So I started my career working for Marriott Vacation Club International, and I opened up international sales galleries across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. I'm a process and procedures kind of gal. I like to set it. And so I was responsible to review government regulation for an American company coming in to sell a product that was in some other country, and what I's do we have to dot, T's that we have to cross to all stay in regulatory compliance across all these different countries. I did quality assurance and communication. I love to know every aspect of everything that I do. And so I even went as far as to hit the sales line to see what kind of challenges the sales force was experiencing, because I was holding them to the line of brand integrity and quality assurance. And I needed to understand what they were facing and what obstacles they had so that I could build the process and procedure to overcome those. So that's how I started. I thought I would be a lifer there, but then I got married and I had a kid and my priorities changed and working
Kids mess up
so
everything.
70-hour work week no longer made any sense to me. And I decided to be a stay at home mom. And I have to throw down the kudos for every woman who has been a stay at home mom, because that's the hardest job I've ever had. The only one that I've really kind of failed at was just being the dedicated stay at home mom. I started to kind of climb the walls, and I realized that when I was like staring at the mailbox cluster waiting for human beings who were adults, to have a conversation with, that I needed something. So Marriott Relocation was my first relocation account, and that's how I entered residential real estate. So Arizona, I married an America West pilot. That's what caused me to move out here. My last Marriott project was Marriott's Canyon Villas at Desert Ridge, and then I landed the Marriott relocation account. From there, I grew it to get the Vanguard account and the Cox Communication account, and that was my intro. And I hung my license at West USA Realty. So it's kind of like,
Wow.
coming home here today, coming to where it all started. Bob Stevens, I would go to Broker Bob and Dale Hillard, rest in peace, amazing man.
Yeah.
John Kitchen. I was so thirsty for information. I'd like follow those three around to office meetings just
John's
to hear
awesome.
the things that you're not supposed to do and things that you should be doing, and just threw myself into that. And I did the churn and burn. I grew my business. I grew relationships in the community. I sort of sharpened my toolbox and grew and stumbled and fell and stood back up and wasted money and really figured out what it took to be successful in probably about 2017. I started to really want to be a part of impacting the way that real estate should be, the integrity. It's truly one of the most honorable professions, and I firmly believe that the by and far vast majority of licensees are the most amazing human beings. They volunteer at schools, they give their time to charities, they build communities. They are, the backbone of so much of our local economy and our communities. And the public, has such a low perception of our industry. And the actions of a few bad actors, right, give the whole lot of everybody somewhat of a bad name. So, how do we do better and how do we treat each other better? So, I started serving the industry itself. I started as a member, just attending government affairs committee meetings at it was WEMAR then, the West Maricopa Association of Realtors. From there, I chaired that committee. From there, I became a director. From a director, I was elected first vice president. I was president elect this year for We Serve and supposed to serve as president. Um, Realtors do a lot of really great and amazing things on a national level, and I wanted to know how I could play on that surface and that arena. So I started getting involved nationally. This year, I was the vice chair of the Mega Board Forum, which is an NAR committee that brings together all of the largest associations in the country to say what's going on at the grassroots that I need to get up to the executive line officers that we need to tackle to best represent our industry and our members. So I was doing that, and I was honored to have received a seat in the 2023 NARLA class, the National Association of Realtors Leadership Academy. They choose 20 members a year out of that 1.6 million.
I've never even seen that application. They don't send
Yeah,
they don't send
yeah.
that
Well,
stuff to me.
I'll tell you, they turned me down the first time, and but I stick to it when I set a goal. So first time I applied, I made it to the interview process. I made it to the top 45, but I didn't get in, and I sat there and I thought, what do you have to do? My goodness, right? I own a brokerage, I own a school, I teach national designations, certifications. What the heck? And so I Googled every person that made it into that class that I didn't. I totally creeped them. I looked at everything that they had done and they had accomplished, and then I got my fork out. I ate probably the entire humble pie, not a slice of it, and I realized that I hadn't done enough yet, and that I needed to affect more change locally and lead more locally before I could earn a seat in that room. And so I got to work. I didn't apply the next year because I didn't feel that I had added enough yet to meet my own bar. Following year after that, I applied and I got in. And all of those things are things that you have to resign from when you accept the position of commissioner.
So now you are the Arizona State Real Estate Commissioner. So what does that mean? What truly is the role of the commissioner, and what are some of the confusions that we have as agents when we call the Department of Real Estate, whether it's we want to complain against another agent because they blasted me on social media or whatever the case is? What is your role? What is the role of the Department of Real Estate?
So, the role of the Department of Real Estate is to protect the public in real estate transactions. The legislature empowers the Commissioner and the Department of Real Estate to do that through Title 32, Chapter 20 of the Arizona Revised Statutes. And pretty much, if it's statutory, I have to enforce that. That's not optional. Those are the laws, and we enforce them. You don't get to pick and choose this one or that one. If you don't like it, then you work to change it, right? You go back to the legislature and you say this really doesn't work for small businesses. This really is an unfair practice, or this is overly burdensome and it's not necessary anymore. And you'll find next legislative session, I will be bringing forward things like that because I've obviously read the entire title and chapter and gone through it with the mindset of having been a real estate brokerage owner and a practicing real estate licensee. And what does that mean to our businesses? And is it necessary to protect the public to require this of businesses?
What sort of changes are you looking to enact?
Fairness and timelines, discretion between, everybody gets a license suspension for this, but actually having the discretion of, is that offense something that I need to protect the public in real estate transactions from this licensee, or is that something that is nothing to do? And if you were applying for a license, there's actually a law that says I can't deny your license for that reason. So why should I have to suspend your license for that reason? Updates. If you're teaching a class, Todd, outside of the state of Arizona, so you do cruising for credits or the Laughlin getaway or something like that, you have to send me, according to statute, a videotape I don't have a VHS player. I mean, I might in those rolly cabinets. There might be one in there. But so things like that that are just clearly outdated need to be addressed. I think things that everybody has in the palm of their hand on a smartphone shouldn't be gotcha items if your brokerage is audited. Like, oh, hey, you're supposed to be displaying your entity license in a frame, and it's 3 months expired. There's a ding in your audit. I think those types of things are ridiculous considering there's a public database that shows that your entity is up to date.
All right, so the elephant in the room and I know you're limited on how deep you can get and commenting on the government's involvement. But we have seen, I would say, over the last 3 to 5 years, a tremendous influx in these joint ventures. And so what I mean for that is real estate agents becoming owners in title companies and or collecting, and I don't want to use the word kickback, but collecting monies for referring business to a lender or doing a joint venture with a lending company and so forth. It has become, and just on a side note, what drives me nuts all about it is we as real estate agents over the last 10 years, all we've done is complain about the Zillows and the realtor.coms for putting us out of business, and the National Association of Realtors sold us out, putting us out of business. And then when we do a joint venture and start doing our own title, start doing our own lender, we're putting title companies, title reps, loan officers out of business as well. So that's
potentially causing the consumer to pay more.
Yeah, and potentially causing the consumer to pay more. So what do we need to know? And maybe you can clearly identify in your mind what a joint venture is or what the government is looking at, looking to investigate.
Sure. Yeah. So, they are complicated. I will say some things are outright kickbacks, invoices for being on a podcast that you never sat on and being paid out of a title company and thinking that we're not going to find that. Like, you guys, I mean, the statute says that the investigator or the Department of Real Estate shall investigate every complaint. So it can be anonymous. And what I think real estate licensees are really naive about is your friends are turning you in. So, because it's an unfair playing field. I've heard, seen, we investigate, obviously. Send me a loan and I'll give you X number of basis points. No, that is not okay. Like, anything that's because of your real estate transactions equals a extra little kickback in your pocket isn't okay. And money is fairly easy to follow. And so, you're really foolish and risking your livelihoods when you decide to accept those kind of deals. There are a lot of honest, good ways to earn money. And then joint ventures, what I've found is that the real estate licensees, title insurers, lenders, I mean, you name it, the affiliated businesses that are involved in these joint ventures have very, very much focused on an exception to the Real Estate Settlement Procedure Act that was created around the mid 80s that said if you own a title company, or I'm just going to say title, but if you own it, you can receive an ownership interest from it. And so you can profit of this company that you own. And that is absolutely out there in the federal law. But what everyone seemed to have just spaced out on is that Arizona also has laws. And a lot of times, state laws are more restrictive than federal laws. And in the case of joint ventures, that is absolutely the case. And so in Arizona, there is not that exception for receiving profit from an ownership interest. And I think there's a whole lot of good real estate licensees. I don't see people as like all good or all bad, right? We're people that make a wrong decision along the way. And I think it's unfortunate, and I've been very, very vocal since becoming commissioner and becoming aware of Arizona's laws and how that would impact the real estate industry, of sort of saying, if you're involved in this, then get an attorney, have your attorney be sure to go through the statutes, not only for real estate, but for title insurance or for lending or whatever your joint venture is going to cover, and make sure that you're good on Arizona statutes. And if you're not good, if you've been unbeknownst to you bad, then reach out and try to work with the regulators to say, didn't know, made a mistake. How do I get good? What do I need to do? Right? Like that's always going to be better than waiting until we find you. Um, and we will be adding at the Department of Real Estate to our audit checklist. Right now, we're training our investigators and we're training our auditors on exactly what to look for. So, in my title and chapter, because I'm Title 32, Chapter 20, I'm going to be looking really closely at disclosures. And when you give those disclosures, and did they mean anything? Because if you're giving a disclosure that says, hey, I own this title company, that I'm countering you now to say you need to use this title company, we're not going to sell you the house, right? And the disclosure says, you don't have to use this title company. You have an opportunity to shop around and get the best deal possible on your title insurance premiums. And you counter at 7 o'clock in the evening on Friday, and your counter offer expires at noon on Saturday. Did you really give the consumer an opportunity to shop around and find alternatives? Or did you say you can't buy this house? You're going to be disadvantaged unless you agree to use this title company. So the timing and delivery, the intent, the informed consent of consumers is all things that I see under Title 32, Chapter 20 in protecting the public. You need to slow down your roll and really think about what you're doing. And if you are going to try to get that property under contract, then maybe in your counteroffer, you also need to allow for the ability of the consumer to shop, or for the title company that you're using to match, or something. But it does take informed consent to the consumers, right? That's part of it.
And agents, I think, a lot of times fail to remember that the Code of Ethics says that they are responsible for noticing the consumer prior to the consumer electing to use a particular service that's provided by the agent, that they're going to, quote unquote, profit off of the expenditure. I mean, I'm going to make money, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, from you using this service I've recommended. I mean, where's that?
Yeah, where's that?
Yeah,
exactly.
where's that?
So audits and investigations will be looking for the where's that and what timeliness was it delivered. The other area is escrow officers are intended and by law need to be a neutral third party, right? And that's something that is one of the pinnacles of a real estate transaction, is that escrow needs to be neutral, because the contract that's wide and far used is the boilerplate one from Arizona Association of Realtors. And that says that the escrow officer gets to make the determination of who gets the earnest money in case of breach of contract. So if the escrow officer works for a company that you're a 50% owner of, or the escrow officer works for a company that your 50% ownership of business partner works for, have you compromised the neutrality of the escrow? And what do those contract cancellations look like? And is there fairness in the history of that? And so the Department of Real Estate will be looking for that, because ultimately, you have a duty of loyalty to your clients, right? It's R428 1101. Under your fiduciary duties, there's the duty of loyalty. And loyalty means you are putting your client over and above and ahead of anyone or anything else, including yourself. And if you tell your client, use this escrow officer and this title company, knowing that that person is compromised, which is contrary to the contract documents, then I'm likely to say that lacks reasonable skill and care. Maybe that's dishonest dealings. Maybe it's incompetence. But it certainly put your client in a position where at any point the other side could have said, hang on a second, potential breach of contract, notice to cure that non-neutral escrow officer.
So Mike,
there's that.
I'm hearing right now that agents out there saying that there's something's coming down the pike that's going to help prevent them from making more money. And yet at the same token, I take Commissioner Nicholson's very first comment, which is her job. She said, I believe in my interpretation, was that she wants to have real estate be interpreted as a profession that is second to none, the highest possible profession in the land. And for that perspective, she's not trying to come down on realtor owners. She's trying to ensure that the consumers get the maximum from the realtor, the benefit, and that in essence makes the consumer want to use a realtor even that much more. So I just, I'm just hearing people out there saying that they feel it's a takeaway, not that she's improving the industry.
Well, the way you guys quote statutes and laws and numbers and stuff like that it's always a good reminder. I'll never be a broker or a commissioner. Pretty much the only one I got nailed down is John 3:16. Outside of that, I'm out.
Yeah.
I knew this would happen. I could spend hours. So I want to, though, throw out, I want to watch your face cringe. I'm just going to mention this term, and you're going to be like, oh, social media.
Ooh, social media. Okay, so.
Well, but I want to preface this is we're going to have a very heated political election and cycle coming up.
Right, okay.
And agents forget, first of all, they forget to put on their social media that they are licensed real estate agents. And they don't have licensed real estate agent and their brokerage on their, let's say, Facebook page, but then yet they're promoting open houses and things like that. And then they're alienating 50% of their audience by going all liberal or all conservative. But then sometimes they take it a step further and are really hurting the public.
Yeah, so, your political affiliation is not a protected class. It doesn't fall under federal fair housing. And you have a freedom of speech. You're allowed to go out there and express your political views. But when you turn around and make it about the people and you start going into that name calling nastiness where you're talking about the people, in all honesty, there's nothing in Title 32 Chapter 20. There's nothing that the Department of Real Estate we're going to engage on that. But your own industry does have something. Code of ethics, right, Todd? Yeah, you've got 10.5 in the Code of Ethics that says no hate speech, no epitaphs. And comments. And what you should know is the Department of Real Estate is on a progressive disciplinary matrix, and the maximum fine for one violation at the Department of Real Estate is $1,000. Now, that does layer and it can become quite expensive. And I guess really the biggest thing is I can revoke your license for, anything that's in violation of 322153. So there's that aspect of it. But good character is no longer part of the Arizona Revised Statutes. And so I'm not going to sit here and judge what is and what is not good character. As a former practicing real estate agent, I just wanted to sell houses to any person who could qualify to buy a house. I didn't want to alienate half of the market, so I left all politics outside of anything that I put out publicly. But if that's your niche and how you're marketing, then you really want to be careful not to cross the line, because the Realtor Code of Ethics, violations of 10.5, they can start with a $10,000 fine against their Realtor members for that kind of hate speech and epitaphs. And I've seen that in my Realtor leadership days, when you're on that executive line, you're signing off on things, and I've seen that fine levied against licensees. And the other thing you need to know is that federal fair housing is a real thing. So when you start talking about your political opponents in a, can we say, derogatory way, in a hate speech sort of way, then you open yourself up to an attractiveness from the organizations that shop the real estate industry, because you're basically saying, I strongly dislike this type of person. And if that type of person is a protected class that they can narrow down to, then you're making yourself ripe for being shopped by fair housing shoppers.
All right. So your position as commissioner, you're not an elected official. You are appointed and you serve at the pleasure of the governor. So we never know how long your tenure will be. When you're done, what is your swan song? What is it that you want to be remembered by, and what is your legacy as role as commissioner?
I really hope the 92,000 plus licensees will look back at my time as the commissioner and say, wow, she really made it so much better for our industry, that I made common sense changes that both benefit and hold people to the line of what these statutes and what these rules and that real estate that the Department of Real Estate regulates, that it was better for everyone. And I also firmly believe that the vast majority of the 92,000 licensees that I regulate do not want to see me go soft on anything that is corrupt in the real estate industry, because that is the black eye that constantly is like the weights on your ankles as you're trying to swim up and break the surface of the water. And so I remember every day when I go to work that not only am I here to protect the public, I have an opportunity to make sure that there is a fairness and an integrity in the profession of real estate, that the title and chapter that the statutes enable me to do, that I'm charged to do by the legislature and under the governor's, will to continue to serve. And so it's a hard position to be in, but it's the position that I am unapologetically pursuing, because that's what I signed up for. I didn't sign up to sort of roll over, look the other way, and not make it better for the good people that go out there every day. And this is a hard job where you wear so many hats, and it's just, we can't have an unlevel playing field because people are breaking laws and not being held accountable for it.
So when you were in high school and you sat down with your guidance counselor, was a commissioner of real estate on that on that survey, on that list?
I was a pretty cheeky little activist in high school. So when I shook the hand of the principal as we walked away, he said, "Oh, thank goodness," because
You're gone.
I love to go right up to the line and push back on the authority for anything that my 18-year-old, 17-year-old self deemed unjust and unfair. So I think even as a child, things that are unfair, I've always targeted.
Yeah, same thing when I was in high school. I got my diploma and I went to the principal. I said, "Did I really pass?" He goes, "We just want you out."
Yeah,
Here
pretty
you go.
much.
All right,
It's an
Commissioner
honorary.
Nicholson, thank you so much
Yeah,
for your
thank you so
time. I
much.
want to do a shout out to Marge Lindsay for making the introduction and
Thank you, Marge.
and helping arrange this. So thank you, Marge. And Marge still, I don't know if you know this, Commissioner, Marge still uses an abacus. That was her first calculator when she got started in real estate. Marge will appreciate that.
We
All
love
right.
you. We love you, Marge.
We leave you with the quote of the day, just in honor of 9/11. And so Americans never quit. We never surrender. We never hide from history. We make history. The late, great John McCain. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Go out and sell a home.